Yvonne Chapman, thank you so much for coming on and joining me on Check It TV. It's a
No,
pleasure
thanks
to
for
have you as
having
a
me.
guest.
It's a
Yeah,
pleasure to be here.
no worries. Well, you've got a lot of great work behind you, and you're recognised for a lot of stuff. And not only that, I'm sure you have some great stories to tell, depending on how long you've got. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
how did acting start for you? Like, where did it all begin? And what's the history behind it? Long story short, or take as long as you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I was born in, no, I'm just kidding. No, it started, when I was young, I really liked it, but I never followed through with it because it just didn't seem like a viable career and not
Mm,
something, understandably, my parents did not want me to push for a career in acting. It's very
okay.
chaotic.
Yeah.
But long story short, I was working a 9 to 5 job. And it was during a time where I was doing, different accreditations for work outside of my job that I needed to get. And it was really stressful. I was studying like all in the evenings and weekends, and I loved acting when I was younger, and I
Mm,
don't know why. I just decided to do an acting course on a weeknight that I forced myself to take off from studying.
okay.
And did an acting class, and that's when I fell in love with it again. And I was like, oh no, I really
Well,
like this.
yeah. Yeah.
So I ended up taking a leave of absence from my job, packing my car from Calgary, Alberta, which is where I grew up and where I was raised, and then
Okay.
drove out to Vancouver.
Wow.
And that was, God, I think that was over 8 years ago now. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Not too far back. Just but 8 years can still be quite long, I guess. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
How long was the drive to get to Vancouver? Was it quite a challenging, journey to get there, or was it sort of quite easy? I'm not sure on the distance.
Yeah, so okay, so in Canada, Alberta, which is where Calgary
Mm,
is one province over
mm,
to BC, where Vancouver is. Even though it's one province, it's a big landmass. So it's about like an 11, 12 hour drive. It felt a lot longer for me though, because quite honestly, like during that time that I was driving from Calgary to Vancouver with my car packed to the brim, I
mm.
was second guessing myself a lot because I left everything back home. Like
Yeah.
my family was there, my boyfriend at the time was there. Like I just upped and left. And during that whole time,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I probably cried half of
Okay.
the 12 hours thinking like, what the hell am I doing?
Mm.
What like I lost my mind.
I bet
But
you wanted to drive back a few times, didn't you? I bet
oh, for
you were like
sure.
hesitating to turn around or
Yeah, I
mm,
mean, every time I stopped for gas, I was like, do I just turn this car around?
mm, mm,
Because I came from a career, I had a whole life, and then I'm like, I lost my mind and I just wanted to try this acting thing, but something kept me going. And so by the time I got to Vancouver, it actually wasn't as scary as I thought. I think it was a lot of fear
mm,
because it was a complete unknown, complete different, career,
mm.
whatever. So by the time I got there though to Vancouver, I was like, okay, this isn't that big of a deal. It's just the fear that was really making me so anxious during this whole ride. And that's
Yeah.
what I tell everybody. It's like just you are always going to be scared to do something new, but once you do it, it's actually not that scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what did your parents originally want you to do then? Because like you said, they didn't support the acting choice. If I heard you
Oh,
correct.
yes, no, you
Yeah.
did. My parents, like a lot of Asian parents,
Mm,
doctor, lawyer, professional, engineer, what may have you. I actually started in bio for the first 2 years of university thinking I was going
mm.
to be a doctor. And
Okay.
then when that didn't turn out, I went to my parents in tears. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't think I could be a doctor. I hate it.
Mm.
And they're like, okay, so do whatever then. I was like, what? But
Yeah.
they when they say do whatever, they still meant like do a profession. So I went into finance after
Yeah.
that.
Not acting.
Not acting.
Mm.
But by the time that I was, getting into acting, I already had a career, I had a fallback. So they were not, you know, I wouldn't say they were not happy, they were just concerned.
Mm.
And they voiced their concern. But at that time, I was like, I have a fallback. If this doesn't work out, like I have an education, I have a job I could go back to, et cetera, et cetera. So they're supportive now.
Yeah.
They're good with it
That's
now, but
good.
at the
Yeah.
time, yeah, they're a bit worried.
Yeah, I bet they're massively like happy with what you've achieved. I mean, you've been in, like I say, you've been in several hits, and there's more coming up, isn't there? With you and it to Netflix, so they must be really proud of your background and work that you've done.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I
Mm,
think there's always a little bit of a concern there still because, like with this industry, you never know. You never know.
mm.
So we're just enjoying it for what it is at the moment, and hopefully it will continue.
Well, what was it that inspired you though to like just drop everything? Like, what was it that like pushed you to do that and leave the country?
You know,
um,
I
yeah.
so okay, so this story I've told a few times and it is true.
Mm,
Because I kept going back and forth whether or not I should pursue this. I mean,
mm,
it was a big risk for me at the time.
mm,
And I was there was one day where it was probably, a few weeks out from when I was planning on leaving to go to Vancouver. And I was picking up a girlfriend of mine for her stay at to go to Vegas.
yeah, yeah.
Weird ass story. So I was in the taxi cab and the cab picked me up first. I was on the way to her house. Um, and she was late, like getting ready. So the cabbie was like, he was so kind. He was, a guy around my age. Like he's like, yeah, I'm doing this for the time being, trying to figure
Mm,
out going to school, et cetera, et cetera. And then we just started talking about life. And then because my girlfriend was like, he's like, let me just stop the meter. We'll just chat. Don't worry about it. We'll wait for her. And
mm.
then I just opened up to him as sometimes you do with strangers, right? It just seems easier to talk sometimes with a stranger
Yeah,
than it does.
yeah.
And I was like, I'm kind of thinking of doing this thing, but like, oh my God, like I'm thinking of quitting my job. I'm thinking of like uprooting my life and moving to a different city. Um, and he said one thing to me that really, I don't know, just really hit me very hard. And he's
Mm,
like, look, failure, don't think about success, you never know.
mm,
And it just struck me in that moment that I was already thinking about failing and
mm.
how everything could go wrong. And that was really stopping me from going. And in that one sentence, he made me recognize that. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I got to let go of fear. I will be okay no matter what, but
Mm,
I got to
mm.
try. You just have to try. And it's not about, being successful, so to speak. It's about reframing your mind of what success actually means. And for
Yeah.
me, success meant to just try it.
Mm.
So that's what kind of pushed me forward.
Wow. And you've taken his advice ever since, really. Is it
Yeah.
always there, like for each job as well? Is it always there for like, every time you go for an audition? Is that what reminds you, would you say? Because of what he said?
Yeah, I think it's in very similar vein where it's really not about booking the job because
Mm,
there's so many variables, so many things outside of your control as an actor that go into the decision process of who actually gets the job. So it has to be about loving the opportunity just to do what you
mm,
want to do, and that's just to act. So
mm.
each audition just needs to be an opportunity to do that. I think the who said it most famously was probably Bryan Cranston, who I absolutely
Yeah.
adore. I love his work. Where he said, it's not about getting the job; it's about doing what you love. And so
Mm,
it's around that same vein that I have to keep in mind of, yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. How do you continue to stay motivated to keep going, like, through gaps of work? And, how do you keep yourself inspired to continue? Is it a
I'll
similar
be
thing
honest.
to what you said? Or,
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's not easy sometimes
mm,
because, it does get to your head, like, especially if there's a big dry period of no work and you're like, oh my God, am I done?
mm,
What am I doing wrong? Like,
mm,
so I think, what keeps me going is the fact that I really do love this.
yeah,
And knowing that because I came from a different world, a different career, I could do something else, but I still choose to do this. And I think that
mm,
says a lot about how much I really care and love the work. Um, and there's just so many avenues of doing it. So, like I am starting to look more into producing, writing, and the director front, which I would love to start to work more into along with the
mm.
acting. And also having good people around me. I'm very lucky. I found a really good group of people who are in this business.
And that's hard to
Who
find these days, isn't it, as well? Like that's one of the hardest things to find is a good group of people.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And so when you find those people, you stick with them, that you support them, they support you, and they, we help each other out in those times of thinking like, it's okay. Like we've done this before. We've
Mm,
gone through those dry spells. It does happen. We know how to weather it together. So let's just weather it. It'll be
mm.
fine.
Wow.
I think that's what keeps me going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's inspiring how people have different ways to, pull through and keep going
Mm,
with the job. So
yeah.
yeah. How many auditions did it take until you got your first job? Like, yeah. I'm sure you didn't keep down, but roughly, I
I
suppose.
hope my face said it all. It was a
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know, but I I always tell people I think if you could see the graveyard of
Mm,
auditions that I've done with no booking, it's probably my success rate is probably less than 1%.
mm,
Yeah. But again, it's like I'm just happy to be able to do those auditions, and I just take it as an opportunity just to do something. Um, God, before I got my first one, I don't even know, man.
yeah,
It was a
yeah,
lot. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I bet.
yeah.
Are there any jobs that you've turned down or, regret turning down, which, could have led to more success within, your line of work?
Um, not no, I don't think there's any that I turned down that didn't work out for the better, I think. I
Mm,
mean, there was one that so it was the first time that I booked a recurring role. Um, and oh God, I really loved the show. And so it was a hard one to turn down, but I did it out of a decision because there was another show that I was going out for that I'm like, I got to take this chance. It was one of those
mm,
things where I already booked this role, but then there was a callback for this other role that I like just really, really loved. And again, it was more of like, I'm just going to take a shot on the thing that I think I'd really excel at. Um, so I always think too, at the end of the day, though, and I really do believe this, and it's been confirmed not just from my own experiences, but everybody
mm,
else, things will happen for you when they're supposed to happen. There's been many times too where I've gone out for auditions, I've gotten callbacks, I've gotten testing situations, and it didn't work out. And I was devastated from those at the
mm.
beginning. But now, because hindsight gives you 2020 vision, I
Yeah.
look back at that, I'm like, I wasn't ready. And
Mm,
of course, I have to trust the process of it. Like they saw that I wasn't ready, but I got that far. So it was telling me to keep going. So at
yeah.
least I could be grateful for that.
Wow. When it comes to acting, what genres and, type of characters do you like, going for usually? Like, what genre do you enjoy the most portraying and, being involved with?
Mm. Okay, personally for me as a viewer, I
Mm,
love fantasy
okay.
and drama. Like,
Okay.
and I kind of love everything as I
Yeah.
say this. So like, but I like this show, that show, that show, and comedy as well. Comedy is a
Mm,
huge one for me. Which I don't unfortunately get a chance to do a lot of. It just so happens that the stuff I've gone out for recently and the market
mm,
that I'm in right now doesn't have a lot of comedic shows happening. But personally, I would love to do something in sci-fi, which
mm,
I haven't really done. Um, and I really enjoyed playing the baddie. I
mm.
have to say, like
Okay.
from Kung Fu days,
Yeah.
being the bad guy is actually a lot of fun. So I
Yeah.
don't mind stepping into those shoes any day.
Does your parents approve of being the bad guy or bad girl?
Ah,
You know.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah,
They've learned
yeah,
it now. They've learned their lesson.
yeah, yeah. They're like,
Mm,
eh, it's fine.
yeah.
Whatever gets me work.
Cool. I mean, Avatar's kind of sci-fi though, isn't it? You got that coming up, if I read correctly. You're going to be in
Yes,
that show.
yeah, I'm very, very excited for that.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
there's a lot of NDAs. It's not out yet, so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What
But
was your most? What was you going to say? Sorry, you were going
oh
to
no, go
say.
ahead.
Okay.
No.
What was your most challenging job? To date. What's been your most challenging? Yeah.
Ooh, most challenging job. I would say, at the beginning, it's challenging, but it was really fun
Mm,
in that context. So at the beginning of Kung Fu, I've never done stunts before.
mm,
My background in that was nil. So that was completely new to me. And that was a very steep learning curve
mm,
to do stunt work. So I give a lot of gratitude and accolades to the stunt team that we had on Kung Fu because they are fantastic teachers,
mm.
super patient with me. They're sainthood patients
Yeah. Yeah.
because I just had no prior experience in that before.
Mm,
So for me, that was completely new and challenging, but it was so much fun to do. And now I would do that any day.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that was probably the most challenging to start.
How much training was involved in like kung fu? Did you know much about it before? Did you have much sense of it before booking the role?
No, I mean, the thing about auditioning with television, especially
Mm,
sometimes, not all the time, is that things happen really quickly. You
mm,
know, you get the audition, sometimes the process is like within a week you book something, sometimes it's the next day, sometimes it's months, you have no idea.
yeah.
But you know, in general terms, it happens quite quickly. So when I got that role, what was nice is like they kind of just matched up with the character first, and then
Mm,
they knew that I could move because I have a background in sports growing up. I've done
mm,
Muay Thai, like things like that. So it wasn't that I was starting from zero. I just didn't have any stunt experience,
okay.
which which was nice that they had the faith that I could do it.
Mm,
So I didn't have much understanding of it before, like what the role would
mm,
entail in terms of physicality, but there was enough there in my background that there was confidence I would be
mm.
able to do the work.
Well, how long did the training take for it? Was there a long amount of training, fighting and, practicing some of the moves? Because I know some are stunt doubles, obviously,
Yeah.
but, the ones that you could do, if you could, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
happens really quick. So episode by episode, we might get it again, it completely varies. Like, sorry, for the pilot, I think it was like a couple weeks that we
Mm,
had to train for one of the big fights
mm,
for my scenes. And then as the show goes on, you know, changes happen last minute, scripts come in, et cetera, et cetera. So it could be anywhere from like a few days
mm,
where we'll get some time in, you know, an hour a day or so with training, then do our own stuff
mm.
back at home when we can, um, to a couple days, you know, it's like it's quite quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a
Okay.
ton of time, but again, because the stunts are so capable, and such great trainers,
Yeah.
they make it so much easier on us.
Okay. And for those that don't know, your character's name was Zilan, wasn't it? Is that how you pronounce
Jalan,
it? What
yeah.
was it?
Jalan. So the
Jalan, sorry.
Z, no, it's fine. The
Yeah.
ZH is kind of pronounced like a G, so Jalan.
Okay, so Jalan. What was Jalan's most challenging opponent, do you think, for the show, to fight against?
Ooh,
Going into
um,
into character a bit more.
to fight against. Her in her character arc, spoiler alert,
Mm,
uh, there's a character named Russell Tan who is her nemesis from the beginning, and she's just wanted revenge against this guy because he's responsible for a lot of the pain in her life,
mm,
especially in her past growing up as a child. So I think for her vendetta has been to go against him for the first two seasons, and
wow.
leading up to that big fight. Um, that would be the most challenging because it's been such an ongoing thing for her.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
would you have liked? I know the show's finished, but who would you have liked her to, have a scene with?
Someone who is currently on the show that I didn't really get
Yeah, I mean
scenes
they
with,
could be off the
or
show or someone that, you would like to bring into the show,
oh, there's so
from
many
any
people.
background. Yeah.
There's so many people. I think this was very wishful thinking because we have
Mm,
no idea in what context he would be on the show.
mm,
But for example, like John Procida, who plays Ryan on the show,
okay.
huge basketball fan.
Mm,
And hey, we all love a lot of Jeremy Lin
mm,
Sanity. So we're like, let's get him on the show somehow, some way.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, sorry, I'm sidetracking here, but 38 at the Garden is
Mm,
like one of the best, it's one of the most inspirational things I've ever watched. And I would have loved to have him as a cameo on the show. And I would love to be in the scene with him at some point. But
yeah.
anyway, that was just very wishful thinking. That's not like something that was actually, you know, seriously taken.
Yeah.
But we all kind of joked, we're like, can we get Jeremy Lin?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So there's quite a few names then that you were thinking about at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the first one that's coming to my head right now.
Yeah. Okay. Changing subject more to the acting and outside of kung fu. What routines do you do like to get into character? Like, what are your routines behind getting into your character? For any show.
Right.
There's nothing specific, but yeah.
Okay. It really depends on the character.
Mm,
Like for Jalan, Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I really like to keep a personal journal for each
Mm,
character, and the journal has to feel like them. So
mm,
for the first season for John, I don't know how long it took me to find this, but I found a journal that was all black with black pages, and
mm,
that's what I wrote into her because she just felt like very dark to me.
mm.
And then for the second season, as she went on her redemption arc and she got a little bit scrappier, I was just writing on scrap pieces of paper,
Yeah.
like things like that, just like thoughts, ideas, just backstory, whatever I wanted to write down for them. I would put it there on a piece of paper.
Mm,
Other times it really is more of like a physicality,
mm,
sensory kind of work, like depending on a certain scene or certain season, it might be like what's kind of lying that's intangible underneath the skin that I can always access if I need to.
mm.
So it completely changes from character to character, but those
Yeah.
are kind of the mainstays of what I do.
Do you ever get lost into character? Like, when you finish acting, do you ever stay as one personality, or, do you ever get lost, with your real personality compared to a character's personality, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I never thought that I did, but then
Mm,
so so for example, one of my really good friends who I met on Street Legal, which is like one of my first shows with CBC.
yeah.
Um, it was funny because at one point she told me, she's like, like you're very different from them what you were on the show. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well,
Mm,
back then, like you're something seems to shift or change. Like, I don't know if maybe you're just like kind of always in character for Mina, which was like my character's name. She's like, but now that I know you, she's like, you're so different
mm,
from her. And like I don't think about it. Like it just did, you just like do the work and it happens. But I guess so.
yeah.
I'm just taking it at face value, but the feedback has been, and I've heard that a couple times with other things too, but that was kind of like the first time where it's like, oh, well, maybe I do kind of, I guess you can't really help it where it just bleeds into every day, and especially if you're if
Mm.
you're continuing it on for a few months or a season at a time. So
When it comes to like all kinds of feedback as well, how do you handle, feedback from different shows? Because sometimes people like the show, sometimes people don't like the show or the character. How do you handle feedback and, criticism, if you've ever had it?
I think feedback is good no matter what it is. I think
Mm,
sometimes like people are free to have their own opinion,
yeah,
right? Like they're completely free to have it, and
you sound
whether it be like,
confident.
well, I
Yeah.
just I just look at it as from a viewership. Like I I mean I have a lot of sympathy too when it comes to like shows, movies. If I don't particularly like something, it's
Mm,
not like I think people are a bad actor. I never
mm,
think that because there's so many other decisions that happen after you shoot it, editing, directional choice, whatever, that are kind of out of the performer's control, right?
mm,
So when I look at it, I'm like, it's just not for me, and that's totally fine.
mm,
Um, I just kind of come at it with like a lot of empathy because I'm on the other side of it. But it helps because when I see reviews that maybe aren't that favorable, I'm like, that's fine. I mean,
mm,
it can't be for everybody. I think
yeah,
what's the saying? If you appeal to everybody, you appeal to no one.
mm,
So at least you're saying something. If you're saying something, there's going to be opinions on it. So I think it's a good thing.
yeah. Okay. It's interesting to know, people, because everyone takes it differently, don't they? Some people can hold on to that one piece of feedback and be like, it can change your sort of whole career, I suppose. To some people, I wouldn't be that dramatic, but yeah, some people it can change. It can change them, can't it? If
Yeah,
I'm on
no,
the
for
right
sure.
page.
And look, I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not saying that it doesn't affect me at all. Like when I
Mm,
see something that's not the best feedback, I'm like, oof, yeah, that kind of hurts. But then I
mm,
have to just take it and be like, okay, how can I get better?
mm,
It's like it's all in how you want to perceive it. And I choose to not let it be something that's going to, make me turn away from the work, maybe just
yeah.
go forward into it more.
Well, Um, okay, changing subjects a little bit more. Who do you hope to work with in the acting industry? Like, who do you hope to see yourself on the screen with? And
Wow.
what jobs are you, hoping to do and be involved with?
Oh, that's a good one. I have a long long list of
Mm,
people that I would love to work with. So
mm.
I probably won't get into that because there's just too many.
You can name a few.
um, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, like, oh God, I love Michelle Yeoh. I think she's amazing. I love Sandra Oh. Like
yeah.
these women who have just really done it for Asian representation. I think I would just love to share the screen with them and
Mm,
just yeah, I would love that. In terms of like work, I mean, I would love to do something. Yeah, I would love to do something like sci-fi, like more
okay.
sci-fi.
Yeah.
Um, and I would love to do probably like I would love to start getting into movies. I've done a lot of TV shows,
Mm,
but I would like to have the experience of what that would be like on more of like a feature film, just for the
yeah.
experience to see what it's like. I love doing TV,
Mm,
but you know, if I could do whatever I can, I will. I mean, at the end of the day, like to be perfectly honest, it's because actors are so much at the whim of other people's decision making. I'm just
mm,
always happy to work. I really
yeah.
am. I love this so much that whatever is presented to me that feels right and that people also think I'm right for, and it just so
Mm,
happens it's a yes decision, I'm really grateful for.
ah,
If I could pick and choose, that'd be amazing. But also I'm just really grateful to keep on working. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good answer. What's next for you work wise? What can we expect to see you in? And I know I mentioned a bit of it at the start, but yeah, what's next for you work wise?
yeah, so Avatar is coming out February 22nd on
Yeah.
Netflix. So I'm excited to see it. I've only seen
Mm,
little snippets of it, but I've heard good things from people who've seen a lot more than me. So
yeah.
I'm excited for that. There is a project I have coming up in the new year that I don't think I can talk about
Okay.
yet, but it will I hope it'll be
Mm,
announced sooner rather than later, and then I can
yeah.
discuss it. But I am really excited for that one too.
Yeah, you sound it. I mean, there's a lot of positive things that seem to be happening for you. You know, you're rising up.
Yeah, knock on wood. Where's
Yeah.
the wood? Knock on wood.
Yeah. Awesome. What advice would you give to, aspiring actors that want to be like you? Yeah, what would you tell people? Would it be the same advice you got given at the start, or
Ooh, that's a
you
really
have a
good
piece of your
question.
own? Mm,
Um, I actually, there's a lot of advice I would give. I would say because you have to go through the motions a lot of this business, meaning that you're going to audition a lot, you're going to hear a lot of no's. It
mm,
doesn't mean that you're not good.
mm,
It's part of the work is that rejection, unfortunately, and it's really important to have a healthy mindset that it's not about again booking the job. And the thing is I can always talk anybody's ear off about advice or these situations or whatever. I don't think anything is that you can teach is learned until you've experienced it, if
mm,
that makes sense.
mm,
um because I don't know if you've ever experienced this personally yourself, but like if someone gives you a piece of advice, it makes sense to you and you're like, yeah, that's sound advice, great.
yeah.
But there are moments in your life where something happens to you and you're like, now I understand what that meant.
Mm, mm,
And for me, beginning in my career, like I had some really wonderful people and mentors who did the same thing for me, that said, look, like, don't worry about not booking yet. It takes some time. You have to give it time. You have to be patient with yourself, kind to yourself. I'm like, yeah, of course, that like all makes sense. But there's so many times that I really wasn't.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
and
there's
it's
only so
not,
much patience you can have as well with everything when it comes to
yeah,
work. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't until that was really felt in the experiences that I had, then like, okay, I actually understand what that advice meant now.
Mm,
Um, so, I say that to new actors is really just, it's a patience game, it's a numbers game. Just keep doing the work, find the love that you have for the work, because that is what's going to keep you going,
yeah.
and drown out the noise of, I don't know, like some people I know would be like trying to show the statistics of like, oh, I'm booking 10% this year out of my auditions. That's great. Next
Mm,
year needs to be 12. I'm like, that's not going to help you.
mm,
All that stuff is fluctuating completely out of your control. Take stock of what you actually can control, and that's your attitude towards it, and that's the work that you're going to present. Everything else you have to let go. Otherwise, it's going to drive you absolutely
Mm,
insane.
right.
So that would be my advice, is just keep it about the work and keep a positive attitude.
Amazing. We can tell you've had your experience in it, and had a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot for every actor, so I really applaud them. You know,
Yeah.
it is, there's a lot of work that nobody sees actually happens that you
Mm,
do for absolute free, you know.
mm.
So any actor, I always have respect for that.
Okay. Just real quick as well. What job are you most proud of? Would you say? I don't know if I already asked that at the start.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Most job, they're also different. Like, I don't think, and I'm not trying to give like a cop out answer here, but I really can't say that I'm more proud over one thing than another. I
Mm,
do think that what I am most proud of was that I didn't turn my car around.
yeah. Yeah.
Like when it comes down to it, it's just like I'm most proud that I just kept trying.
Mm,
Because if I didn't get any of those jobs, and if I went back to Calgary and I went back to, my corporate job, which would have been fine, um, at least I could say that I tried. And
yeah.
that's really what I'm most proud of to say, is
Well.
that I tried and I keep
Yeah.
trying.
And it hasn't finished, so that's a
And
good
it
thing.
hasn't finished.
Yeah.
I mean, another piece of advice too,
Mm,
you personally will know when you're done.
mm,
Like,
mm,
nobody else can tell you when you're finished. You will know when you're done. So listen to
mm.
yourself first, listen to your intuition.
Amazing. Cool. Yvonne, thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing talking. And it's inspiring to hear what you have to say, about the industry and yourself.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. Thank
yeah.
you so much for having me.
Where can everyone follow you just to, finish off the subject and
Oh,
conversation?
sure. You can find me on Instagram. It's YP Chapman.
Yeah.
Very boring, but that's
Yeah.
just my initials and my last name. And on Twitter, which, I'm kind of on there. It's Yvonne underscore Chapman, because underscore was taken. So
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
anyway,
We all have the
hopefully for the
same
game.
names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you again so much. Thank you. Appreciate you coming
Oh,
on.
thank
Thank you.
you. Yeah, it was lovely. It's great talking with you. Thank you.
Cool.